The little girl's cry pierced through the cold morning air like a siren of pain. Her small hands trembled as she clutched the broken doll, one arm missing, its face smudged with dirt. Beside her, her mother knelt on the cracked pavement outside the factory gates, a deep bruise darkening her cheek. The world around them seemed cruelly indifferent. Trucks roared past, workers filed in without a glance, and life carried on as if nothing had happened. But not for them. For that little girl, the world had just crumbled, and when she whispered those words, "They broke my toy and hit my mom," something inside the group of bikers nearby ignited like fire catching gasoline. Before we go further, if you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances can still change this world, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this one reach more hearts that still believe in good. The morning had started like any other for the biker crew known as the Angels of Steel. They were a rough-looking bunch, tattooed arms, heavy boots, and leather jackets that spoke of miles of open road and brotherhood forged in fire. But behind the intimidating exterior, many of them carried stories of redemption, men who had once made mistakes, who now sought to make amends in ways the world rarely noticed. Their leader, a tall, broad man named Ray Grim Lawson, had stopped his bike to grab coffee from a small roadside cafe across from the old steel factory. The factory was known in the town for its ruthless supervisors and poor conditions. People whispered about how workers were treated like machines. Grim had once worked there, years ago, before he walked away to build a new life. That's when he saw her, a woman stumbling out of the factory gate, clutching her child's hand. Her face was pale, and her eyes darted around like she was escaping something. The little girl, maybe 5 or 6, held a small doll close to her chest. But what caught Grim's attention wasn't just their fear. It was the moment when 2 uniformed factory guards shoved the woman back toward the road. He saw the child cry out, "Don't hurt my mommy." He saw one of the guards laugh, snatch the doll from her, and throw it to the ground, stomping on it until the arm snapped off. And then, when the woman tried to shield her daughter, he saw a hand strike her across the face. The sound of that slap was like a whip crack in the quiet air. Grim's jaw tightened. The other bikers who had been talking nearby turned silent. The mother fell to her knees, tears mixing with dust, while the guards walked away as if nothing had happened. Grim walked across the street without a word. His boots echoed against the pavement, heavy and slow. The other bikers followed him, forming a line behind their leader. When he knelt beside the crying girl, the sun glinted off his metal rings and the tattoos on his hands, symbols of a man who'd seen too much of life's ugliness and was done watching it repeat. He gently picked up the broken doll, brushing the dirt off its cracked face, and handed it back to the little girl. She looked at him with tearful eyes that spoke of innocence shattered too soon. Behind her, her mother tried to apologize, whispering that it wasn't anyone's business, that they just needed to leave. But Grim looked into her bruised face and saw something that burned his soul, the same helplessness he'd seen in his own mother years ago, when his father's fists ruled their home. The woman's name was Sarah, and her daughter was Mia. She worked in the packaging unit of the factory, long hours, low pay, and a supervisor named Cole who made life a nightmare for anyone who dared to speak up. When she accidentally dropped a box that morning, the man had grabbed her by the arm, yelling insults loud enough for everyone to hear. Mia, waiting outside, had seen it all through the gate and tried to run in, but the guards stopped her. When Sarah tried to defend herself, one of the guards had struck her. She hadn't reported it because she couldn't afford to lose her job. That factory paycheck was all she had to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads after her husband died 2 years earlier. But when Mia's doll broke, it broke something inside her too. The humiliation, the fear, the exhaustion, it all finally spilled out. Grim listened quietly as she spoke, his fists clenched so tight the veins in his hands pulsed. Behind him, his crew shifted uneasily, anger radiating off them like heat waves on asphalt. These men weren't saints, but they had their own code: never hurt the innocent and never stand by when someone else does. Grim stood up, turned toward his men, and said just 3 words, "Start your engines." The roar that followed shook the ground. One by one, the motorcycles came alive, their engines thundering like a storm rolling in. Workers began gathering near the gate, whispering, wondering what was about to happen. Sarah gasped, realizing what Grim intended to do. She tried to stop him, pleading, "Please don't, they'll fire me. I'll lose everything." But Grim turned to her and said, "You already lost too much. Let them face what they've done." The bikes rolled forward in formation, 7 riders, chrome gleaming under the sun, leather jackets flashing the red and white emblem of the Angels of Steel. They didn't go fast. They didn't shout. They simply rode slow, steady, unstoppable toward the factory gates. The guards who had hit Sarah were still there, laughing among themselves. Their laughter died when they saw the bikers approaching. The gates rattled as Grim's bike stopped inches away. The guards stepped back instinctively. Grim removed his helmet, revealing eyes that burned with the kind of fury only injustice could light. He didn't need to say much. His presence spoke enough. He walked up to the guard who had hit Sarah and simply asked, "You think you're a tough man?" The guard stuttered something about minding his own business. Grim's silence was louder than any threat. One of the bikers, a tall man named Tex, pulled out his phone and began recording. "Don't worry," he said coldly. "We'll let your boss see what kind of monsters he's hearing." When the factory supervisor, Cole, came running out demanding they leave, Grim met him halfway. "You run a place where men hit women and break a child's toy for fun?" he asked, his voice low but sharp as a knife. Cole sneered, saying they had no business there. But when Grim mentioned Sarah's name, the crowd of workers began murmuring. Everyone had seen how she was treated, but fear had kept them silent. Now, for the first time, that silence cracked. One worker stepped forward, saying, "It's true, we've all seen it." Another added, "Cole been doing this for years." The factory manager, who had been watching from the office window, finally came down, his face pale. The bikers didn't have to throw a single punch. They didn't need to. The truth, backed by a wall of witnesses and the thunder of their presence, did the work for them. Cole and the guards were suspended that very day. An investigation was launched. For Sarah, justice came not through violence but through the courage of strangers who refused to look away. When the bikers returned to the street, Sarah stood waiting with Mia in her arms. Her face was still bruised, but her eyes shone with gratitude. Grim handed Mia a small box. Inside was a brand new doll, handmade by one of the bikers' wives, who crafted toys for charity. Mia's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. Sarah tried to thank them, tears falling freely now, but Grim just smiled and said, "No need. Just promise her she'll grow up knowing that no one has the right to hurt her or anyone else." The crew mounted their bikes again, but before leaving, Grim looked back one last time. He saw the little girl waving her doll in the air, smiling through her tears. And for the first time in a long while, he felt something warm in his chest, a reminder that even the roughest souls can carry the purest hearts when they choose to stand for what's right. Days later, the story spread across the town. People began calling the bikers the angels who roared for justice. Sarah found a better job through community support, and the factory quietly replaced its management after the backlash. Grim and his crew went back to their rides, never asking for credit, never seeking fame, because some acts of goodness don't need a spotlight. They just need to be done. And yet, in every ride after that day, Grim carried with him the sound of a little girl's voice, the memory of broken innocence, and the promise he made silently to himself. Never again would he stand by and watch the strong prey on the weak. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, not just to support the channel, but to spread a message this world desperately needs. That compassion still exists, that courage still matters, and that kindness can still roar louder than hate. Speech balloon before you go, tell us in the comments. Would you have stood up for Sarah and her daughter if you were there that day? Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life Is one person brave enough to care?